welcome back to the Redhead and the Bearded Beauty.
I'm the Redhead.
And I am the Bearded Beauty, I think. I about lost my beard a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Oof.
I went and got a haircut, and he was trimming up my sideburns. He was like, "What do you want to do?" I'm like, "Oh, just take them up a little bit." And I wasn't expecting him to actually trim down. And so I had a little section there without. It's like, that would not have been good. After one episode, I would have lost my beard.
We would have to make Steve redo the logos.
Yes, and that would not be good.
He would not be happy with us.
No. So it's been a busy week. This episode, we're going to be bringing on Chief Pierman with the Wichita Fire Department to talk the response to the Andover Tornado. And so I know we get a lot of calls, you do with the media, about in these sorts of events, about what the city's doing. So talk a little bit about, what our role as communications is in these events when they're not necessarily in the city limits of Wichita.
Yeah, obviously we do a lot when it is Wichita, and storm response is actually through the county, through emergency management. They do all of the sirens. We get a lot of questions about the sirens. People think that we do that. Oh.
You might have just given away something for later in the show.
I might have just given away my...
Not good.
Oh, well, whatever.
We record this in order, just so you know.
Yeah, no. So we get a lot. When a significant storm response or any community emergency happens, we activate what's called the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. It's actually right across the street from City Hall. And, you call in or you go, there's actually desks for all of the agencies in town. We have a desk, just city communications. So we got activated Friday night. And given that it wasn't Wichita and, we didn't think we would have much outside of supporting the county and our fellow cities, we didn't go in as communications to this event. We just called in. But we were all communicating up until about 1 a.m. on Friday, and then sent out, communications on what we were doing Saturday morning, and then updating on decisions on, we kept our landfill open longer hours for people to dump debris and stuff like that. Public Works went out and helped do some of that. Fire was out, police was out. They were all at the EOC too. So, our role for the Andover Tornado was just sort of supporting our partner agencies.
Yeah, that's important that we support and get that message out, because we have a much bigger following than some of the smaller communities, and some of those people might be tuned into our channels, our social media, our means of communication. So
and a lot of Andover residents are using Wichita Water, so we have to tell them, it's like, now that a couple days has passed, we're like, hey, make sure that if you're leveling a building, you shut off your water so that you don't incur further charges and stuff like that, and working with our customers in Andover and other communities.
Yeah, and that's something that all of this communication is we were ready for. I know you and I both, we were saying, okay, we're on call, we're ready to go for Friday night. It's something we planned for, and we're ready to take on whenever we're needed to come in and help communicate to the public. So
very much so. And cell phones have made things so much easier, because I'm getting texts all night from internally, and then our partners at the county, and then some of our counterparts in other cities, and then as well as the media, so they know that they can reach us. That isn't always a great thing, so don't text me if you don't have to.
So also this last week, we had a fun little challenge between departments at City Hall. I think the Park and Rec Department kicked it off for International Dance Day. You have
a different definition of fun than I do.
I thought it was rather entertaining. See Troy Houtman, Director of Parks and Rec, and Barry the Bison go back and forth in a dance-off.
They did do that. They did,
I think Troy might need to work on his dance moves a little bit.
Yeah,
hopefully he's not watching.
It's not about quality necessary. It's about effort.
Yes, and it was good spirit. It was
good spirit.
And then I think they called out the fire department. Fire department had Sparky and Chief Snow.
Snow
they did very good. Who let the dogs out?
Yeah, that was great.
And then they challenged the police department. And the police department had one of their officers and Justice. So they did very good.
The legal eagle.
And then the police department called us out.
They did.
They said we should do a dance video.
They did do that.
I was all for it.
You were very gung-ho about it.
I was ready to do the chicken dance.
I was not. I said, I draw the line at dancing. I am not here for fun. I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. I said, my literal words to you were, I would rather get pushed in the river. And I meant it.
And we were going to respond on Monday. I think we were going to go out and do a piece where we were going to talk about the dance challenge.
We were going to do it on Friday, but I didn't want to get my hair wet because it's date night.
Date night, yeah. You didn't want to go home and wash your hair that night.
My hair, yeah.
And so then we were going to do it Monday.
Yeah.
And my kid was home sick, so I had to stay home on Monday. So I know you were very disappointed I didn't get a push in the river.
Darn it.
I was looking forward to that.
And now we've had so much rain that the flow rate is high with the river, so Battalion Chief would have had to fish me out. So
I'm going to remember that, though, that you had agreed to it. And at some point in our careers together, I'm going to push you in the river.
And it was my idea, so I can't not do it.
That'll be a fun time. Mm-hmm. And speaking of fun times, we've had some more dad jokes. They were submitted on our last podcast on the YouTube. So, yeah, let's pull some of those up. First one was from Troy. He says, why do golfers bring extra socks when playing at Texas-Consolver Golf Course? And it's in case they get a hole-in-one.
That is very specific to the city of Wichita.
Yeah, it's very specific.
Look at that.
I think Troy, maybe a city employee.
Troy kind of sounds like, yeah.
Yeah. And we also got one from the Wichita Police Department. They said someone broke into the police station and stole all the toilets. Police say they have nothing to go on.
I think they have too much time on their hands. I ran into Chad this morning on the elevators, and he said it's bow tie Friday. He was looking very dapper.
In his bow tie?
So we don't have anything like that.
No.
So I don't think it'd work for us, but
yeah, that was rather good. And I came up with one in response to that. I said, why do officers always smell?
Why?
Because they're on duty.
Oh God.
So yeah, I will. Speaking of Chad, I got to stick up for him. He was on.
Chad is great.
Yes, he's great to work with, and on their podcast, excuse me, on Coffee Break, both Trevor and Paul and their guest Lieutenant Slaughter were giving him a hard time because he had not watched Star Wars. Or he was not a Star Wars fan.
You know what? I was listening to that while I was working on other stuff, and I did kind of perk my ears up, and I'm like, you've never watched Star Wars? Who are you?
I think he said he'd maybe watched 30 minutes of one movie. And
it's not okay.
Chad, just so you know, I am with you. I'm not a Star Wars fan either. You're
not a Star Wars fan, or you've never seen Star Wars?
I've seen maybe one episode and a little bits of others, but I'm just not a Star Wars fan.
Wait a minute. One episode? You mean one of the episode 1 prequel to the original Star Wars?
I couldn't tell you which one it was. I don't know. I don't even remember. My parents used to run a movie theater, and it was in the theater one weekend, and I watched it. So that's, yeah.
I've got no words for you. It's you don't even have to like it. You just have to watch it. What? This is not okay. You've got to watch it.
No, I really don't.
It's a whole cultural thing.
It is, and that's just not my culture. That's not my thing. I'm not into Star Wars.
Can't do it.
So, Chad, I'm with you. I'm going to stick up for you. And anytime you want to come on this show, we will not give you a hard time. Well, Megan might give you a hard time. I won't give you a hard time for not being a Star Wars fan. So
you don't have to like it. You just have to watch it.
That's fair. But
it's like the live action remake of Cats. You don't have to like it, but you have to watch it.
That's one I have not watched either.
Oh, I think we could remedy that. It's something.
Maybe that'll be our next team outing. We'll go watch Cats. Yeah, no, that might be another day that I'm going to be sick.
Oh, you got to do it.
All right, I think we've digressed far enough. So let's take a quick break, and we're going to bring in Chief Pierman. So,
all right.
Most of us have access to a grocery store anytime we want.
Right now, there's about 44 square miles in Sedgwick County that are food deserts, and we can use this to develop plans in order to be able to make sure that people have access to healthy foods.
The master food plan for Wichita and Sedgwick County was very important. It's something that the community has been working on for quite a while, almost a decade.
Food was about $1.6 billion was spent here in Sedgwick County alone, and if we could just grow just a portion of that, it'd be $8 or $9 million worth of economic development right here in Sedgwick County.
We've been tasked with some very specific outcomes for this farm. My name's Leah Danner Garcia, and I am the owner-operator of Firefly Farm and Rise Farms. Rise Farms is the first rooftop farm in the city of Wichita. I'm a real proponent of the Health and Wellness Coalition's efforts to bring about a food master plan for our city. This puts Wichita on a national map to have a program like this. We absolutely hope this trend takes off. There's a lot of rooftops that could be retrofitted to accommodate growing programs.
I am very hopeful and optimistic that this food plan will not just be something that sits on a shelf and it gathers dust. It's going to be active. It's going to be something that lets our community think about food in different ways. We know that many of us have the luxury of having access to food and access to healthy food each and every day, but there are some that don't, and so this food plan really helps to address that.
All right, we're back, and now our guest is Battalion Chief Lane Pierman with the Wichita Fire Department, and he's here to talk about the response that WFD had to the Andover Tornado last Friday night. So, Chief, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
First, just tell us a little bit about yourself, professionally and personally.
So I'm the Chief of Special Operations for the Wichita Fire Department. I've been with the fire department here for going on 28 years here coming up in December.
Gotcha. So where did you start? Like what station did you start at and kind of work your way up?
I started at Old Station 10, which was located at 17th and Grove. And for the most part, I've spent my entire career between Station 10, both when it was there, and the new one there at 21st and Chautauqua, and Station 5 at 2nd and Hillside. And shortly before I was promoted to Battalion Chief, I was the captain downtown here at Station 1 for just around 2 years.
Gotcha. And then what do you do at home when you're not with the fire department, you're not being the Battalion Chief? What's home life?
So I'm married with 3 kids. One of them's grown and out of the house. My youngest is 10, and the other one is 14. So that they're between the two of those. They keep us busy. But, I do storm chasing. I like photography. So about around this time of year, it's not unusual for me to do like 8,000 miles, during the month of May and April all over this part of the country. But, so yeah, we keep pretty busy.
So we need to hang out on the weekends, and it sounds like storm chasing.
Oh, you do? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, when I worked at Channel 10, I did some storm chasing. So
yeah.
It was a lot of fun. It's a lot of driving and a lot of sitting around for several hours and 15 minutes of excitement. So, yeah. All right. We like to kick these off with a little game called Two Truths and a Lie. So the whole premise is I'm going to tell you 2 things that are true and 1 that's a lie, and you guys have to guess which one is the lie. So I'll go first. First one, I had a classmate in first grade. We had a tornado warning, and we all had to go out in the hallway and sit down and cover our heads. And a classmate, she was freaking out. And so I had to calm her. So I developed my love of storms, I guess, clear back in first grade, calming her down. Second one, living in western Kansas, we had a lot of snakes out there. And so we had a tornado warning, and we had to go into the storm cellar, and there was a snake in the storm cellar. Third one, so I said I worked at Channel 10. I was out in Greensburg when the tornado struck. After the national media all left, before they left, they just took their trash sacks and threw them out, and I was just so offended by that. They just threw them on the ground. So I stayed late, picked up all the sacks, put them in the back of the satellite truck, took them to Pratt, and threw them in a dumpster. So which of those 3 is a lie?
I'm going to say the snake.
I was going to say the snake too, although that's completely believable. Though.
It is believable, but I think that's the lie.
Yeah, that's the lie. The snake was a lie. We didn't have a storm cellar. We had a basement. So yeah, the snake was a lie. But
nice. Okay, so my 2 truths and a lie are, after the Andover tornado, we get a lot of questions. Actually, after every storm, so the city controls the storm signals. The sirens. So we get a lot of questions about those. My second one is the city does not oversee trash service. We get a lot of questions about residents about trash service. And my third one is the first permanent settlement was in Wichita in 1864.
I'm going to go with the sirens.
Yeah, the sirens.
Same.
Sirens, yeah. We get a lot of questions about, I couldn't hear the sirens, or when are you guys testing the sirens? And that's actually the county. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's emergency management.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, Chief, how about you?
So you asked what, I mentioned that I enjoy storm chasing and photography. One time storm chasing, I had to ride out a tornado in a freezer at a gas station in Waukene. I do quite a bit of photography, not as much as I used to, but I've done some commission work for a Swedish death metal band over in Sweden. And I have ferried a Cessna 182 to the Ivory Coast on a part-time gig.
That is rather difficult.
I believe all of those.
I do. I think they could all be true, but I'm going to go with the last one as your lie.
Okay, I'll agree. Last one was the lie.
Yeah, the last one's a lie.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to. That sounds like a lot of fun, but no, I've never ferried a Cessna 182 over to Africa.
Gotcha. So you said a death metal band in Sweden?
That's awesome.
Tell us about that.
It's a funny story. I enjoy doing photography for the hobby, but then once you start doing something, people start to want to pay you to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I entertain doing that. I did senior photography and even shot a friend's wedding once, but I didn't care to do it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got an email from the lead singer of a Swedish death metal band who had seen some of my work online and wanted to use it for cover art for their upcoming album. Actually, for the album and then for a couple of singles. So there were 3 images that they used, and I kind of chuckled to myself. It's like, okay, Swedish death metal band, sure, have at it. You help yourself to it, whatever. And so I gave it to him for free, and it wasn't like 3 or 4 months later that curiosity got the best of me, and I actually looked them up, and the first thing that came up was one of their videos, and they're Swedish, but they don't sound Swedish. They don't look. They look like a southern rock band, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I joked that one of these days you'll see me on Pawn Stars. I'll go up there with a USB drive and throw it on the counter, and that's the original cover art for Jesus Chrysler Supercar.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I love that.
I'm going to back up a quick second. So since we're talking the Andover Tornado and stuff, it's like you do storm chasing, you take photos. So what is your favorite memory or experience chasing and photographing storms?
A lot of times I'm by myself when I do it, but occasionally, there'll be people with me. One of the during the 2016, yeah, the Dodge City tornado. My nephew, at the time, this was the 3rd time he was out with me. The previous 2, it had been a total bust, but that was a lot of fun for a couple of reasons. One, it was he saw his first tornado, and it was a real photogenic tornado, and everything was just good. Good visibility. There was no, for the most part, it was allowed us to stay on a paved road. In 2 hours, we had off and on video of it and stuff. So that was a lot of fun. And I just, believe it or not, I like getting out and seeing the country. I don't like interstate driving, stuff like that. So, storm chasing, you're on the back roads and you get to see a lot of the country that most people don't ever get to see.
Yeah, I'm from Western Kansas, out near Dodge, about 2 hours from Dodge, and that's good storm chasing country out there. It's wide open.
Flat, the high plains of Western Kansas and down into the panhandles. It's perfect. It's great, And that Dodge City tornado, if I remember correctly, For the most part, I don't remember that there was ever any real injuries. It stayed mostly in the rural parts outside of Dodge. There was a moment there where we were concerned that it was going to go right into the town, but it never did.
Yeah, it stayed just to the west side, I think. I remember watching that. I was at a restaurant with my girls, and we were showing our house, so we couldn't be in the house. I took them out for dinner, and they had the Weather Channel on, and I remember it's just like, that was so amazing, seeing that tornado just wide open, and it was, the solid cone, I guess you call it a stovepipe tornado, and so that was pretty neat to watch that one.
It took on several different shapes.
Yeah.
It kind of went through the whole gamut of shapes. It was really cool.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. So last Friday night, you guys got the call. We had some severe weather in the area. Luckily, that didn't come through Wichita. There'd have been probably a lot more damage. But explain what you were doing Friday night and when you got that call that there was a tornado in Andover and what happened next.
So actually Friday, I was actually working in the field. We will normally try to increase staffing on days where we anticipate some sort of high-impact severe weather event. This was one of those days. So we had increased the staffing on our rescue and truck companies. I went in service as a 5th Battalion chief. We normally run with 4. And we were just finishing up a brush fire, believe it or not, down 55th and Hoover area. And the storm that we were keeping an eye on, which looked really puny on radar, it wasn't putting out hardly any precipitation at all, noticed that it started to appear to be more organized, and it was showing signs of low-level rotation, quite obvious. And so we ended up making our way over to the turnpike and following it up just to keep an eye on it, following it up the turnpike, and we got off at K96 and parked there at the parking lot next to the toll booth. And not 2 minutes after we parked, about 2 minutes after we parked there, it was quite evident that there was an obvious funnel cloud that formed. So sent the information over to emergency management, and the evolution of the tornado was very, very, very fast, a lot faster than what I've ever seen in the past. For the most part, that storm didn't present itself with a obvious visible wall cloud that a lot of people associate with.
Yeah.
But it did have real strong organized low-level rotation that was visible underneath the bottom of the storm. Anyway, from the moment the funnel cloud was visible until the moment the tornado was on the ground was only a minute or two. It was real rapid evolution. And anyway, we waited for it to pass to the south and east. You could see debris, so we knew that it was hitting structures. And so we just started heading to that general vicinity. And the calls to the 911 center started to come in almost immediately.
Why does the fire department respond to emergencies in other communities? We get that question sometimes.
Mm-hmm. So here in Wichita and Sedgwick County area, we have a mutual aid agreement. It's actually an automatic aid agreement with the county fire district. And what we do is, regardless of jurisdiction, the closest fire companies are going to respond to the emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And so outside of the city limits, you will oftentimes, say it's a structure fire, you'll see both the county fire district and city of Wichita firefighters working together. In the southeast part of the county, it's not uncommon at all to see the Wichita Fire Department, the county fire district, the Derby Fire Department, and even Rose Hill and others working on a single event, just simply because of the proximity of the event to those communities. Got you.
So when you guys first got into Andover, what was your role? What did you need to be doing? Well,
initially, the tornado touched down here in Sedgwick County, and it just barely technically skirted the city limits, just by a quarter, maybe a half a mile. And so the initial command post was set up at 31st Street South and 143rd Street East, where we had encountered some significant damage, roofs blown off of homes. One home that I believe was completely destroyed. And we were trying to understand what the magnitude of the situation was. We didn't have very much daylight at all. It got dark rather quickly. And then we had the line of storms that had developed along that cold front as it pushed east that was fixing to bear down on us. We had a visual on that tornado that the whole time, and even while we were there at 31st and 143rd, you could look and see it. And it sure seemed like it was making a beeline towards the city of Andover. I believe we were only operating there for about maybe an hour. It's hard to tell sometimes on those things how long. And received a phone call, and that Andover was hit, and made the decision to relocate the command post jointly with the Andover Fire Department, and we set up under a unified command structure at the Dillons there at Andover Road and Kellogg.
So talk a little bit more about that, the command post. So you got all these different agencies coming in. How do each department know who's in charge, who's making the calls, and then how do you all work together? How's that whole process work?
It works really well, actually, believe it or not. The parking lot there at the Dillons, it was full of responders, from law enforcement to fire departments, EMS units. And under that unified command scenario, in that case, the incident commanders who were jointly, because it's one incident, and we don't want to be in a situation where we were managing the tornado damage on the Sedgwick County side, and Butler County and Andover was managing that, because then you end up with the possibility of competing for resources, right? So there needs to be some sort of coordinated effort. So that's why we went there. In this case, the fire department was in command of the overall incident, and we would have representatives from the various agencies that have some sort of jurisdictional responsibility. So there were law enforcement representatives present, and so on and so forth. And there's a process that you go through, to determine, objectives and strategy and stuff like that collectively, and then you go from there.
So even when we have an emergency like the Andover fire, we still have things going on at home here in Wichita. Mm-hmm. How do we manage that so that we're always well equipped to respond to emergencies?
So we do that a number of ways. One of them I mentioned that we have automatic and mutual aid agreements with many of the surrounding communities and fire departments. So when the event happens and we're happen to be running short, there's still people to service those calls. The other one is I said that when we can anticipate and predict that we might be inundated with an increase in call demand, we will add either additional staffing to the existing resources that we have, or even place into service some reserve units to give us that added capacity that we're going to need to answer that increasing call demand. So, and then third, which it's rare, but we can, and we have in the past, called back off-duty shifts to come back into work and staff. But in my career, that's only probably happened 3 or 4 times, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. But between the first two, though, we do a really good job at being able to maintain coverage.
That's good.
Gotcha. So a while back, there was a event in Trust Bank Arena. They had lots of speakers come in. Mayor Rudy Giuliani was one of them, and he was talking about with 9/11, you can't really train for that. You don't expect that to come up. But with that event, what they did, they fell back on their training for this portion over here, this portion over here, putting all those things together, those trainings, to be able to coordinate an event. So I thought that was really neat, how they just pulled on different things they had learned to handle an overall event. Excuse me. So talk about the training that goes in for the fire department for stuff like this.
For stuff like that, well, for the resources that the individual fire companies out there, they're constantly drilling on the various disciplines that are required for them to do their job. We do more than just fire suppression responsibilities, rescue, hazardous materials response, emergency medical response, stuff like that. It just so happened that I believe it was earlier that week, our rescue companies just finished up their an annual recurrency training on structural collapse shoring, where they practice making raker shores and stuff to stabilize damaged or walls on structures and whatnot. So nearly every day there's training that's going on that covers any one of those types of disciplines. And then you have, the command and control part of it, which that requires training. And whether it's, the initial training that folks need to have in order to operate under the incident command system, the National Incident Management System, or exercises, large-scale exercises, tabletop exercises, stuff like that. There's always, several times a year anyway, that we are exercising those things.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Because you're not just responding to fires or things like that. There's also medical calls and search and rescue. And, we know you guys respond to a lot of medical calls, but talk about some of the other specialty units the department has.
So outside of the bread and butter stuff that we do, which is very important, you see the fire engines, the ladder trucks. We maintain 2 rescue companies within the city. Those are at Station 4 and Station 10. We have some specialized units as well that serve in different capacities. They're not necessarily staffed full-time, but they play a very important role depending on the situation. One of them is a mobile command and communications unit that is essentially, it looks like a large bus or a large camper, if you will, and it's equipped with a tremendous amount of communications equipment because even Wichita being the largest fire department in the state, significant events we will have to rely on assistance from other agencies, and so it allows us that ability to make sure that we're able to communicate with whoever it is that we're going to go help or that is coming in to help. So the communications solutions that are on that apparatus are a tremendous help. It also supports the command and control effort in the sense that, especially in a tornado scenario where you might have communications infrastructure that's damaged, we have the ability to bring in satellite data, satellite phone, computers, networking, stuff like that. So it's a real valuable and important asset to us. We maintain where we just put in service here this last year, a specialized unit for flammable liquid fires.
What is that? Explain that a little bit.
So,
like oil,
gasoline, ethanol, whatever, but particularly the petroleum-based liquids. Oil and water don't mix, right? So you have a grease fire on the stove. The last thing you want to do is put water on it, right? So the proper way to extinguish those fires, if you have like a pool, like a gasoline tanker truck on fire, is using foam, because the foam will float on top and exclude the oxygen and extinguish the fire.
Is that what happened with the Coleman factory? We had that huge explosion.
Yeah, that was 1 pound propane cylinders. I don't know how many thousands of them, but that was quite an experience. But in that particular scenario, the foam wouldn't have. It's just you have to let it do what it's going to do, protect the exposures.
Yeah.
But whether it's a gasoline tanker that's on its side, that is, even if it's not on fire, you apply the foam to suppress the vapors to keep it from catching fire, so.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And you guys do, excuse me, you do water rescue and that sort of thing as well. That's with the heavy rescue units, the specialty units?
Yeah, so the 2 rescue companies maintain, for the most part, the same capabilities to respond to those various types of incidents. The one thing that sets them apart, that divides the 2, is Rescue Company 1, which is over off of Meridian, south of Kellogg, is surface water rescue type operations, and then also subsurface. So our rescue divers are located and assigned to that company. Rescue 2 is the hazardous materials response team. So they're specialized to deal with chemical type emergencies.
We've had a lot of rain this week. And around this time of year, every spring, we have, and the Colorado, all the melting of the snow flows downriver to us. And, when the flow rate exceeds 300 or 4,000 CPS, we tell people you can't go in the river. And there's no other time that people want to go in the river that when you tell them they can't.
Yeah.
I think there was the River Fest, the guys on the giant inflatable swan that you guys had to fish out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we tell you not to go in the river, these guys have to go fish you out. So don't go in the river.
Yeah, that moving water can be really deceiving.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really dangerous. And what makes it particularly dangerous here is we've got a couple of low water dam structures that folks may or may not know about, but you certainly don't want to end up on the downstream side of one of those, because the outcome is most likely not going to be good.
Yeah, it's so dangerous. And like even our Parks and Rec have their kayaking days, and what is it, the boat place on the river, the name escapes me, but when we issue those alerts, they stop their activities to rent out watercraft, because it is dangerous even for those experienced kayakers or paddleboarders.
Yeah,
so
it really is.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell us about all the specialty units and that sort of thing within the fire department?
Yeah, no, we're fixing to put in service 3 purpose-built brush fire units. The supply chain issues that everybody's dealing with also impacts the construction of firefighting apparatus. We're buying it from a manufacturer up in Salina. The chassis, they'll be on Ford F550 chassis. The chassis were ordered last April.
What is a chassis?
Oh, it's the vehicle that the box and stuff is going to be fit on. This is essentially going to be a 4-wheel drive, ruggedized off-road vehicle pickup. So it's a 1-ton pickup truck chassis that'll have 300 gallons of water on it, and it allows it to go off-road and extinguish those fires. But the last I heard on that was they expected delivery of a chassis here perhaps this month, but it's been over a year.
And I know out west, station numbers slip in my mind here. It's on West Maple. You guys have a truck that basically is just a big water tanker that can respond to areas that don't have hydrants to hook up to nearby.
Yep, we maintain actually 2. One of them I spoke about, the foam tender. It also serves as a water tender with 3,000 gallons of water, and that's at Station 10, assigned to Rescue Company 2, the hazardous materials response team. And then on the west side of town is it looks very similar, another water tender, 3,000 gallons, and it's assigned to Station 17 there.
I just remembered you were talking about the incident command unit. You guys sent that out to the East Coast, correct, to help with hurricane efforts?
Yeah, we are, the Wichita Fire Department is part of the Kansas Urban Search and Rescue Response System. We are part of Task Force 5, which is South Central Kansas. There's 8 departments in the South Central region that make up Task Force 5. And then when there's a deployment, a request, an interstate request, state-to-state type request for resources, which oftentimes it is the case when you have hurricanes that are going to impact, large areas of the United States, we will send that particular asset with our folks in the task force to support task force operations. And we do so precisely because of the communication assets that it has and the capabilities that it has.
Gotcha. All right, so we like to have some fun on this show, and we like to tell dad jokes. Some call them bad jokes, but whatever. So do you have any good dad jokes for us?
I don't know that it necessarily qualifies as a joke, and I can't say that it's a dad joke because my wife said it or mentioned it actually 2 days ago, and it made me chuckle. But it went something like this, and she actually caught me off guard. She said that she stayed up all night the other night to see where the sun went. And then it dawned on her.
That's pretty
That's
good.
good.
I know,
That's
right?
good.
And it actually made me laugh.
Kudos.
But yeah, so that's all I got.
Megan, how about you?
Does February March?
No.
No.
No, but April May.
That's a good one. That just reminded me. I've got two. I've got a firefighter theme one. But if April showers bring May flowers, what do May flowers bring?
I don't know.
Pilgrims.
Oh.
So that just made me think of that one. But the one I brought here, I have to preface this with at Christmas, my family did a dad joke competition. You try to stare across the table at each other and not laugh. And so I've got a brother in Colorado that's a firefighter full time, and then I've got a brother in Pratt that's a volunteer firefighter. So I use this one on him. I go, no one knows the importance of 3.5 seconds more than a volunteer firefighter. That's exactly how long it takes them to tell you they're a volunteer firefighter.
Nice.
So, all right. Well, Chief, thank you so much for being on the show. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do and your response in Andover the other night. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching this episode or listening if you're listening to the podcast. And you can always reach out to us. Give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing, or send us your dad jokes and we'll use them on the show. You can email social@wichita.gov. Again, thanks for watching.